is, running it down on these niggas.
Sex, drugs, money, and murder, my nigga. You know how we get it, my nigga. Still be painting them pictures, my nigga. Ripping that roll and fucking your bitches. Sex, drugs, money, and murder. 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 Niggas, they never will hurt you. Niggas will never will hurt you. Sex, drugs, money, and murder. Sex, drugs, money, and murder.
Got the trap spot, understand how to get that. Ran down on them niggas with a flip back. Knew I never seen another nigga live like that. I was still getting stacks back. Had to fuck around getting them packs back. Niggas.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Bullis Gotti. Before we start this video off, I just want you to see the craziness that's going on in this Karen Reed trial. So,
what a day in Karen Reed's retrial. How much time do you have? 10 minutes or less. As we always do, here's a recap of what happened today. It's day 25 of testimony. It's Monday, June 2nd. Here's what you need to know. So the judge ruled first thing in the morning before the jury was in there that she would allow Michael Proctor's text messages to come in as evidence through his friend, meaning that Proctor would not have to testify in order for his text messages to become evidence. This is something that the defense wanted because the state didn't call Proctor. The defense didn't want to call Proctor because they'd be kind of backed into a corner with the style of questioning they could do. So instead, they're going to admit his text messages without him on the stand. Then, immediately after that, the jury comes in and the friend who will be the one through whom the texts are admitted testifies. That's Jonathan Diamandis. He's a lifelong friend of Michael Proctor. He's known him since middle school. David Yannetti direct examines him, so asks him questions. All the testimony is that he's a lifelong friend of Proctor, has stayed close after high school, that he was in a group chat of 9 people, I believe it was, who all grew up together or are all from Canton, and that this witness only sent one text in an entire snippet of the thread that was given to him. The entire conversation was over 38,000 text messages, but he was given a few pages of texts, and then that's it. He doesn't read the text. There's no further questions by Yannetti. Then on cross-examination, Hank Brennan says, "Are you still friends with Michael Proctor?" He says yes. And then Brennan says, "In that text thread, are there inappropriate comments your friend made about the investigation?" He says yes. Then a little while later, I'm trying to summarize, he asks the witness to read Proctor's text messages. And the witness says, and I quote, "These are not my words. I'm not really comfortable reading these. Do I have to say these words out loud?" The lawyers go to sidebar. They come back and Hank Brennan says, "I'll read them," meaning Hank Brennan is going to read Michael Proctor's text messages. So get this, prosecutor reading Michael Proctor's text messages on cross-examination of Michael Proctor's friend. He reads the text messages. You've heard them before. He reads whack job, C-word, yeah, she's a babe, weird Fall River accent though, no. Anyway, a lot of the text messages are read by Hank Brennan, and then the witness says, yes, those are accurate. Then after that, Brennan asks if the witness is aware that his friend was fired from state police. He says, yes, I am aware. Are you aware why he was fired? He says, I don't know all of the details, but I do know that it was because of these text messages. And then one of his last questions, Brennan says, in your text messages with Mr. Proctor, did he ever discuss framing any defendant, including this one? And the witness says, absolutely not. Then back on redirect with David Yannetti, David Yannetti points out that the information in the text, including about Karen Reed's medical conditions, was private information that Proctor was sharing with his high school buddies. And he also points out that Proctor was the only one revealing details about the case to the witness, and he says correct. Okay, then he's done. Then Kelly Dever is called to the stand. I think I told you about her on Friday. I didn't know who she was. Now we do. So Kelly Dever is a former Canton police officer and a current Boston police officer. So she's called to the stand. Alan Jackson is questioning her. And despite the testimony not factually maybe being any of the strongest evidence in this case, Kelly Dever on the stand was a very strange moment, perhaps the most tense testimony we have seen in either of these trials. So she takes the stand and she clearly is uncomfortable being there on the stand. She's asked about her career, and she talks a little bit about what she remembers about that night, but she keeps saying it's 3.5 years later, I don't remember much. Okay. Then she's asked why she's here, and she says, I don't know why I'm here. I have no connection to this case. Then she's asked what she had testified to in a prior interview. Okay, follow this. what she had answered in a prior interview with a different law enforcement agency. So it's a very vague question, and here's why. It's because nobody in this case is allowed to mention the federal investigation into the case. That's prohibited testimony. So she's asked this vague question. She's interviewed in August of 2023 by, we know, the feds. The jury doesn't know this, by some independent law enforcement agency. And she says to Alan Jackson, I cannot make the statement that you're wanting me to make on the stand because I've been advised that now that would be a lie. And Alan Jackson says, did you observe something in the Sallyport garage on January 29th that you found unusual that stuck out in your head? And she says, given factual information, that means I know I did not. The answer is no. And Alan Jackson says, when you did this interview with these officers in 2023, were you advised that lying to them would be a crime? And she says, I made that statement back then in good faith. And she says to Alan Jackson on the stand, you threatened to charge me with perjury if I did not lie on the stand right now. So it's immediately tense. It's kind of unclear what's going on. What ends up happening is that what Dever had told the FBI and the feds is that she saw on January 29, 2022, former Canton Police Chief Ken Berkowitz and Brian Higgins go into the Sallyport at Canton Police with Karen Reed's Lexus for what she called a wildly long time. Now, she has since recanted that statement because she says, well, we won't get there. We'll get there on cross. So she finishes talking about how she was called up to Commissioner Cox, the Boston Police Commissioner's office, when she was called to testify in this trial. And Alan Jackson's like, didn't you find it odd that Cox would call a rookie police officer up to his office? And she's like, no, it's a reflection of his good leadership. It was really tense. And it was so tense that at one point Alan Jackson asked for a sidebar. They go to sidebar, and when he comes back, he starts asking all leading questions, and there's no objection by prosecutors. And so the assumption there, we don't know for sure because it happened at sidebar, but the assumption was that he asked the judge to treat this witness as a hostile witness, which would give him the permission to ask leading questions, because there was an immediate flip of a switch as soon as he got back after that sidebar. Okay. Then cross-examination happens, and Kelly Dever says to Hank Brennan, the defense was essentially telling me what they were looking for me to say on the stand, looking for me to say that I saw Higgins and Berkowitz in the garage with the car. Then she says, when she told them she wouldn't say that because it's no longer true, they became very aggressive, raised their voices, and the one word I remember is they said they would charge me with perjury. And her explanation for why she recanted that statement is that she said she initially thought that, but that it was a bad memory because she was later presented with a timeline, which clearly showed in her testimony that she left work that day at 3:45 p.m. and that Karen Reed's car didn't show up to Canton Police until 5:30-ish p.m. So therefore, maybe she saw Berkowitz and Higgins go into the Sallyport, but she says she didn't see them go in with Karen Reed's car because she wasn't at Canton Police anymore when Karen Reed's car came to the station. Okay, so anyway, she talked about how there was the phone call turned hasty and uncomfortable with defense attorneys. Then back on redirect, things are tense all over again with Alan Jackson. She's clearly uncomfortable being there. And he points out, who can charge someone with perjury? And she doesn't really want to answer. And then ultimately she says, well, the DA's office can. He says, can a defense attorney charge someone with perjury? You're a police officer. You know this. She says, no. And then he said, nobody on this defense told you they could charge you with perjury, did they? And she says, oh, yes, they did. I contacted the FBI with it. Why does that matter? Because like I said, the feds have not been allowed to be mentioned in this trial. And then this woman says on the stand that she contacted the FBI and reported that in her experience, she says the defense told her she would be charged with perjury if she changed her statement, more or less, is what she was testifying to. And so things were very, very tense at this point, as I've said many times. Alan Jackson points out again, you never saw them leave, but you said Berkowitz and Higgins were in the Sallyport for a wildly long time together there. And she does say, yes, that's what I said at the time during that testimony. And at one point, he accidentally calls her Officer Dever instead of Dever. And she says back, just like you can't remember my name, I don't remember. Obviously, that's not an important piece of factual testimony, but it's a good example of how tense this cross-examination was, and direct examination. Sorry, not cross-examination. This direct examination. The defense called this witness not knowing how she was going to testify. She was subpoenaed to be there, and then it was extremely tense. I asked Karen Reed, as did other reporters, about this after court today, and she said she'd never talked to this woman. She didn't know how she was going to testify, and that she called her because they wanted her to testify to exactly what she had told the feds about 2 years ago. And obviously that's not what she testified to. She changed her statement. Karen Reed denied any allegation of telling this witness to lie on the stand. So that was the real tension of the day, which is why I'll give you a summary in 30 seconds or less of what happened next, because we'll talk about this more tomorrow. Then Dr. Marie Russell takes the stand. You know Dr. Russell from the first trial. She's a California emergency room doctor, long list of credentials, former Malden, Mass police officer, went to MIT, forensic pathology, etc., expert in dog bites. She testifies that in her opinion, the injuries to John O'Keefe's right arm are consistent with dog bites or a dog attack. Every time she says attack, that gets stricken from the records. She says dog bites or scratches. Ultimately, that's what she testifies to. Cross-examination with her began, but it did not finish. So Dr. Russell will be back on the stand first thing tomorrow, which is why this is a pretty brief description of her testimony. And that's all I have. See you tomorrow. Bye.
What if the Commonwealth wants to counter and bring in a state police officer to say that investigation was fantastic? Do it. Do it.
That crime scene was completely open.
Yes.
Unsecured
Yes.
and available to anybody who wanted access to it.
Correct.
Everybody did a remarkable job under the circumstances.
It looks like an evidence bag. It just doesn't say Canton Police on it. It says Stop and Shop, but it does look like an evidence bag. It's the same thing.
Investigation was fantastic.
What do you mean by certain forms of physics?
Physics calculations that would be required to figure out how far a body at rest would move, having been struck by an object in motion. That's the basic principle.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Everybody did a remarkable job under the circumstances.
Were those just any solo cups, or those the solo cups that you took back to the station from 34th Fairview? And somehow, as he landed, tucked that cell phone underneath his body to land it on top of it.
It just did. That's the evidence at the scene.
Hang on.
Are you objecting if they called somebody in rebuttal to reinforce a great investigation?
Oh no. Mr. Brennan said, what if I called in a Massachusetts state police officer to say that this was the best investigation ever? I have 2 words. Do it. Do it. I'd love that. It's not a personal shot at Mr. Brennan. I'm just saying do it.
I was physically attracted to her, yes.
Sexually attracted to her was my question.
Well, I think in the text I said, you're hot.
Okay. So my question again, Mr. Higgins, you seem to not want to answer my question. My question is, were you or were you not sexually attracted to my client?
Yes.
Okay. You were saying things like, what do you want from me? And I want the real deal. Those are your words, correct?
Yes.
And the real deal with you would be to date her, to get involved with her, romantically, correct?
No.
The real deal was what? What did you mean by I want the real deal?
Like a relationship.
What kind of relationship? A buddy-buddy relationship? You just want to go like...
The same thing everybody wants, a real relationship.
Like a romantic relationship, Mr. Higgins?
It's possible.
Right.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
I am put on the stand in a murder trial. I don't know why I'm here. I have no connection to this case.
Did you observe anything unusual that stood out in your mind that occurred, pardon me, in the Sally Port while you were on that ship?
So we've discussed this previously. I can't make that statement on the stand because I've been provided information released by the defense that it was not a memory, that it was a distorted memory. Therefore, I can't state it because at this point it would be a lie. I cannot make that statement that you're wanting me to make on the stand because I've advised that that would be a lie.
Ms. Dever, I've never asked you to make a statement one way or the other on the stand. I'm asking you an open-ended question.
Okay,
Let me ask you a question. Did you observe something in the Sallyport garage on January 29th, 2022 that you found unusual, that stuck out in your mind?
Given factual information that makes it so I know I did not, no.
So the answer is no.
Correct.
Do you remember being interviewed on August 9th, 2023?
I do.
That was by a separate law enforcement agency, correct?
Yes.
2 separate law enforcement agents, is that right?
Yes.
And you were advised during the course of that interview on August 29th of something, correct?
Can you rephrase that?
I'm sorry, August 9th.
So what was I advised of? Can you rephrase that?
Sure. Were you advised that lying to those officers would be a crime?
So it was a willing conversation. I've spoken with their legal team. Because of the fact I was provided factual information that showed a statement of mine was a false memory, it was not a lie. Therefore, I made it in good faith, and I retracted given information that it could not be accurate.
Ms. Dever, did you understand my question?
Yes, I did. You threatened to charge me with perjury during our phone call prior to the first trial if I didn't lie on the stand right now. I'm telling you, I did not see anything. Factually, I've been provided evidence by a timeline that it is not correct.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Willis Gotti, back with another one. So, I want to talk about this Karen Reed case because I've been following this case. And I've been seeing what's been going on. And me personally, I know I love to give my takes on cases and all that. This is a cover-up case. And I'm going to explain to you why. So basically, the case is Karen Reed's boyfriend, I think his name is John O'Keefe, was an officer, police officer. And basically, he had went out to a bar, got into an altercation, what they were saying, and he was found in the driveway on the parking space, dead in the snow. To me personally, the case just doesn't sound, how can I say this, how they're trying to present the case. When I looked at the case a little bit, I said, whoa, this case looked like a cover-up right here. This doesn't look like a case that's a strong case to say that she killed her boyfriend. What it looked like to me is that whatever happened during the time of the argument, the heated argument that he had, and whoever killed him, it was a personal kill. Because they said it was bruises on his body. It looked like he was beaten. It was a whole lot of things the way they broke it down. So fast forward now to this whole case. She had a mistrial. The first trial showed that basically they didn't have any evidence to prove that this woman did this. Now the retrial is still showing that there's been some corruption going on in that town. That basically they putting this murder on this woman, and it's basically really not her. It's really somebody that's deeper into the case. But it's not surprising that, that it's something, it's deeper than what it is. And I think a lot of people, me, I always follow a lot of criminal cases for years. And especially like these type of criminal cases, I've been following for a long time. And what I tell people is when you follow criminal cases, it's something that's really deeper than what you think. And just in this case here, it's a deeper situation. It's just not adding up. Like, I think it's more to the story. I think because she was the girlfriend, and they're trying to say that she's the one that murdered him, but the evidence is not. This is why the jury is not really strongly, how you can say, it's saying guilty. The case really do look weak. Like, it looks like it was a cover-up because the friend had the cell phone, had a cell phone. There was a lot of things. There was a lot of moving pieces going on in the whole case. Just by watching a lot of the footage and watching a lot of the content about the case, that a lot of things doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I just don't understand how this murder happened. And the details of the case is that they're trying to say that this woman murdered her boyfriend at the time. But to me, the honest opinion, it's just not, it's not registered. Like, it just is something else that happened, because with the video, with the altercation that happened at the bar, I think it was at the bar, at a party, yeah, there was an altercation. So, to have an altercation, end up, I don't know, later after the situation, end up dead, and he's laying there on the driveway, dead in the snow, and nobody can say who doing it but the girlfriend. They place the blame on the girlfriend. I can see if it was like the case with my dude from Memphis. My God, he had lost his life. In that situation, if you look at that case, dude, it was a lot of moving pieces. The wife was doing a lot of things that was like, oh, she doing too much, right? Spending the money, had an insurance policy, and then come to find out her and her boyfriend had him murdered, right? But in this case here, it doesn't look like that. It's look like a case that basically is being a cover-up from inside. I don't know if it's the police is hiding some evidence, or people are hiding evidence for whatever reason, but the case just doesn't look strong enough to say that this woman is guilty. I could see if the case was real strong and they had an open and shut, but it's just not, it's not giving a strong case. It's just not giving an open and shut case. It's giving a case that when you put the pieces to the puzzle, that is a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things going on, and the woman just don't want to let it go, what she's doing, you know? And the sad part is that people is just not really look. It's like people is seeing that it's something going on. Like the judge is blocking certain things. Like it's like really in that town, it's really a cover up going on that try to hide something. It's something. It's some sort of corruption going on in that town that they don't want the public to know, or that they don't want to know about this case. Because if a man ends up dead, and they don't have any forensic evidence, they don't have any DNA evidence that shows that this woman killed her. All they have is that he was under the car, by the driveway, laying dead. But nobody knows what happens. The bruises, they don't know nothing that happened to this man. Like, to me, it just sounds like somebody killed him. I don't know if it was a fellow police officer, or somebody that knew him, or the person that he had the altercation and they came back and retaliate. But it just, in this case, it just doesn't say, it just, to me, it doesn't sit right. To me. It doesn't sit right. It just looks to me that this is just a case that really should have never went back to trial. You know, the mistrial, it just shows you that the case wasn't even strong enough. That if the case can go to a mistrial, that means that they didn't have a lot of evidence to get a conviction. Like, if the case is solid, the case is solid. But in this situation, the case really is not that solid. Like, it was, to me, it just looked like it was all over the place, and that the witnesses couldn't get their story straight. Like, they could not get their story straight. It's like people, in my opinion, just when you look at the case, it just looks crazy. Doesn't look anything. Doesn't look like it makes any sense. I thought that the case would have some truth in it. Like, the people will see that they had some type of evidence, something that really could stand. But right now, it doesn't even look like that. But hey, it is what it is, man. It's your boy Bullets Gotti. Like I said, man, like, this case right here is showing, and a lot of cases so far is showing that the justice system has a lot of cleaning up it has to do. Because if you can convict somebody and saying that somebody did something, and then it comes out that the person, that the evidence is not showing that, and that the jury is not swayed on reasonable doubt evidence that this woman did this, and that it's footage of this man having an altercation with another man, then it's something that's really not, it's something really going on that's not adding up. It's more to the story. That's the way I feel. It's more to the story, and it's more to the situation. And I think that whatever happens in this case is going to show that it was some sort of corruption going on. But I think it's a lot of corruption going on just by the way the case is being handled, the judge, the problems with the judge, the problems with the witnesses, the problems with people not being truthful on the witness stand. And it's like her lawyers is really doing a great job because they're really exposing a lot of these people. So, you know, this is a good case. This is a case that really is really a teaching moment of how the justice system and the corruption is going on. There's a lot of towns, small towns and counties that are very corrupt, man, that are doing a lot of underhanded stuff. And this case right here is showing that corruption is crazy, you know? But it is what it is, man. It's your boy, Bo's guy.